Okay, this is my cast on comb that I just created. Got my glue, which still needs to dry a little bit, but it should be okay. All my needles are approximately straight through. I got one that's curved a little bit, but I'm going to fix that later on. I've got 61 needles on my cast on comb. I'm going to pull them all the way out, make sure my hooks are in the latches, and I'm going to put one hook into each of the spaces between the needles. Now you may have to do a little bit of wiggling, and that's what I use for this. I just slide the needle over. I'm doing this slow so you can see me. It usually takes a little bit, not as long. Okay, now all my needles are in. Now I'm going to pull it towards me a little bit, keeping my needles flat and keeping my pins flat but below the needles. And I'm pulling it towards me slowly, and I'm making sure that all the curls on the pins are hooked on the yarn, not splitting the yarn. Sometimes it happens. You just back up a little bit and unhook them. You can use your latches to unhook it. Okay. You'll be using your transfer tool, a credit card which is cut into an odd shape, and the credit card is used this way. You run it along, and that opens up all the latches, because you do want the latches open. Now you have to push all these needles back, and what I do is I use a long ruler. You just set them into and this is just a metal ruler, and just push them back until everything's up against the bed of the machine. Now these two didn't cooperate. No biggie. I'm telling you, nothing you do can't be fixed. And what you do is just push it back until the latches are just resting on the needles themselves. Now, if I tried to knit right now, I might get one row. Might get 2 rows, but I will not get 3 rows because it needs some weight. So I'm taking these document clips, putting them on either end of my board, about halfway, because I'm going to slide my weights. I'm going to slide at least 2 weights into my document clips. Would help if you could see what I'm talking about, wouldn't it? Hang on, let me fix that. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm just sliding them in to these weights. Once they're in there, I'm going to hold the board down, hold the weights up, and move the clips up until it keeps the weight solid against my board. Then I bring my carriage over to the side that the working yarn is setting on, load my carriage, and now I am going to knit 20 rows. Now the first row I go slow and I kind of walk. See how I'm wiggling the carriage a little bit? And I kind of go slow and walk it across. If you're using a row counter, you want to set it to 0 before you start, so you can just zip along. Okay, then before you knit the third row, the second row, you make sure everything got stitched. Okay, so that is 1. 2, 3, 4, Okay, did you hear that snap? That was telling me I lost a stitch. And the reason I lost the stitch is back a couple rows, it only caught a piece of the yarn, which I wasn't listening, otherwise I would have realized that. So you just take it out and restitch it. Now the thread I'm taking, you'll see the bump going horizontal. It's the up and down one that I'm grabbing and putting it back on the needle. Now that is going to need a weight. We'll keep it straight, unit and straight, and I'm going to put one on the other end. I usually rewind my work, but I didn't this time. I like it on nice neat. This has too. Okay, it's that first stitch again. You can hear it. It's not stitching. Make sure there's nothing in its way. See? No big deal. You just finish the row out, get your tool, and restitch the ones that didn't want to stitch. And that's, I may have had too much tension on it. The yarn for the bond needs to have no tension on it, and as you know, I was holding it, so that's not a real good thing. So I'm going to put it down out of the way. Try to keep free tension. I got 18. Okay, now I got 20 rows, but I want to make sure I don't have any issues with my weights, so I'm going to do about 4 more. Yeah, it dropped again. Where's my... No biggie. You just restitch it. And put it back on the needle. Now, this is the casing. This is the part that the work will be setting into. So I'm going to set my carriage out of the way. Take my weights carefully off. Let it just hang there for the moment. I'm going to hang my weights into the middle, which is where that one is. And that one's kind of in the middle. The reason is I'm going to be slowly and carefully taking the work off of the comb. And watching the work that's on the machine, because I don't want it to bubble up and off. See, if I let go of this piece over here, right here, would come off. Now it's going to need weights, and I don't want the weights in the front because I'm going to be folding the work up. So I'll just put a half a dozen weights. You can use claw weights, but put them on the back side, because what you're going to be doing, you're going to be taking your tool and rehanging. I want to take the outside stitch and rehanging it. Now if you were doing a hat, you'd do the same thing, but from this point you knit about 34 rows, 6 inches, then do a gather, and then sew the seams. and then you'd have a little watch gap. Now for about an adult, I think about 74, 76 stitches. The best way to calculate that is do a swatch. My swatches are usually 20 stitches by 60 rows, because it's easy to do the calculation. Find out how many inch per row you have. And then if you have a 22 inch head, you want to make the hat about 20, 21, 20 inches. So you multiply your inch by row, your row per inch by 19 or 20, and then you want about if your head is 22, you want it about an inch and a half to 2 inches smaller, so that it'll hug your head. Now I'm just rehanging this. Now I'll be temporarily done with that cast on comb, so I'm going to move it out of my way in a minute. And I'm going to show you how I store it. I have a basket that's down at my feet, and in that basket I have some cardboard. I've got about, I think 7 of them right now, because I have cast on combs from 5 pins up to my monster that's got 77 pins, but will handle, that one's done every other one, where this one's done every stitch, every 8mm. So that one's just kind of sticking up there next to my table. Now, I currently have the weights off. I have the cast on comb off. Excuse me. What I'm going to do, because I am going to need weights at this point, I'm going to take my weights, slip them in the casing I just made. And I'd do that if I was doing a hat also. Now you could do this with a closed cast on, an open cast on, which you would need about 10, 20 rows of waste yarn, and then move it up, then take the waste yarn off, and I find this a lot easier. So the way I store these, I take a piece of cardboard, and this is maybe about 8 by 12. It's going to set in my basket like this, and I'll just set this. It hasn't been set yet, so there's no, it kind of doesn't want to cooperate with me this morning. But that would just set on that into my bag, into my box, which is currently a basket. Of course, this particular cast-on comb is wider than my basket, so it just sits on top and totally ignores my plastic, my cardboard. See, it totally ignores it. But the rest work fine. That's because this one's longer than my basket. So what I'll do with this one, I will just hang it on the edge of my basket. And see, we solved that little problem. Okay. Now let's get back to where you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I will take my weights and just open the casing up and slide it in. Now at this point I can take those other weights off because they will be only in the way. There is no real good way of taking them off, you just do the best you can. And I've got some document clips hung on the end of my bed, and that's where I'm hanging them. Now these I will move up to the first stitch. And I don't think one weight is going to be enough, so I'll just slide in another one. And if I find I need some more, I'll just slide in some more. So I can put my clips out of the way. And I have 24 rows, and just because I'm going to do 24 more rows. Then I will do a loose cast on. Now that first stitch, because it's got 2 stitches on it, this first row is going to take a little bit of, don't do that, I lifted up on it. It's, what you can do is stitch the first stitch and then just putting in non-working position, forward non-working position. Okay. Now put all my thumb. What I'm doing is I'm making sure they're all in working position by running my thumb down. Okay, bring my carriage up. Make sure that yarn is wrapped on the top of the needle that's in non-working position, because that one is already stitched. And I just slowly work my way down the row. See, the row counter changed for me. So there's one. Okay, I forgot to put that in working position, so I'll do it now. That should stitch. If it doesn't, no big deal. You just manually stitch it. And now you're ready to just zip along for 24 rows. 2, 3, 4. Dropped a stitch. Do you hear that snap? So you just, no big deal. You just go down and grab it. Rehang it on the machine. Am I getting on that one? Or is it too high up? What I'm doing is I'm lifting up the 2 rows I missed, pushing the needle forward so that the stitch falls behind the latch. Then I'm picking up 1, letting the 2 drop, picking up 1, working the stitch, then dropping and working the stitch. See how it's getting bubbly? That's telling me I need at least 1 more weight. Now, I have a tendency to drop these on my toes. So what I do is I take these, my document clips, and just clip the work. That way it doesn't slide as easily. Okay. Drop the stitch again. It's because you gotta remember to move that weight up. Probably about every, I would say about every 10th to 15th row. Now I'm trying to get the correct stitch because it got twisted on me a little bit. Okay. And then rehang that on the, and move your weight back up. And that will hold it down while you stitch the last row. Now I have 2 that jump track. So again, I'm putting the latch tool into the last full stitch that I reached. So I go below the next row. So that gives me 2 ladders to work. The reason I go to the next one down, like I drop that stitch, rather than fighting to pick up the row below, I go below that because it's a lot easier to do that, to work the stitch, than to fight and make that 1 loop bigger so you can stick the tool into it. Okay. I'm going to go for 48. So I do not change my... Oh, actually, 46 is plenty. like, ending on the right. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to do a cast off that's going to create holes. So you stitch it, and I want that hole, so stitch it. Move it over, stitch it, and stitch the hole. Move it over, stitch it, stitch the hole. See how I'm putting in holes? And do that all the way down. So it's a 2-stitch cast off. Now this is like you could do that on an edge and tie them together. That'll look very nice together. Make your edge that way and do an I-cord and just run the I-cord up around it. But I'll show you why I want the holes as soon as I get this done. Oh, you can always tell if you didn't do the wrap because you'll see 2 stitches on there and you only want to see the 1 stitch. Wrap, stitch, wrap, stitch, wrap. At one point I will take the weights off because it'll be too heavy for it to work. But if I find it too loose, I'll just put some of my single weights, which my weights, as I've told you, are just fishing lures. Got them at a local department store. Some I got online. And I just either dipped them in what's called Plastic It. Oh. Yeah, see, I get to talking and I don't always pay attention. Maybe I should be quiet when I'm doing this. This is just waste yarn, nothing spectacular. It's actually the first piece of yarn. It's worsted weight. Now I have made them on my Brother, which is a standard machine. It's a 4.5 machine. And that one I like, but this one's quicker. And my videos are strictly bond. So if I can't do it on the bond, I'm not going to show you. Ah! No biggie. As long as you don't have heart failure. Hold it tight below the stitch. And if you can't just slip that transfer tool into the stitch, go down one below, knit it, and then you got it. And then move that one over. You could do it with a tool. I find it cumbersome. So you'd have to do this and move it over and knit, knit. A little on the lazy side. Now another way I do it. I wrap my hand. Would up if you could see it, wouldn't it? I wrap my hand. I grab it with the pinky, wrap it up and over my knuckles, and wrap it around the thumb. Okay, I'll get it down. This way I can do this a one-handed, two-handed. I don't have to grab the yarn again because I've already got it where I need it. And I just maneuver the thumb up and over the needle, up and over the needle. Now, can you see it right here where it's buckling? I don't want to lose my weight, so I'm going to move all the weights down a little bit. See? Now it's nice and even again. Grab the pinky, up and over the hand, and around the thumb. Okay, and now if you wanted to use the transfer tool, I'll show you how I do it that way. Oops, I let go of the yarn, just pull it tight. You want to see your thumb is kind of close to the work so that it can work it. Excuse me. Okay, knit it, pull it out, wrap it, knit it, transfer it, knit it, knit it, transfer it, knit it. You can use a transfer tool to wrap it if you so desired. You don't want to pull it until you're ready to maneuver it over. Excuse me. Now my weight's starting to do the wobbly thing, so I'm going to take some of it out. And I just slide them in my basket. I wrap my hands up with the thread so I can maneuver it. That way I have my fingers free to maneuver the needle to get it forward and back. And it's wrapped around, I can maneuver the yarn to wrap it around the needle. And I still got my fingers on the back of the thread. Because every now and then I have to pull it tight because I don't hold it real tight. Okay. And you can use your tool to bring it up and over if you choose. Which is all personal preference. I try to give you several options to do the same thing. There's no one way to do it. And you don't even have to wrap it if you don't want to. You can just use strictly this and pick up the thread and wrap it. And just make sure you wrap it twice. See, my weight's going weird again. But I'm almost to the end. So I'm just leaving the clip on the work. That'll hold it down just about enough. See if we can get in here and see this. Come on, focus. There we go. Okay, knit the one. Move it over. Now I'm sure you're seeing my tape with my numbers, these up here, and you're wondering, okay, what's she doing with those? I was making a pair of gloves with them, and those are where my placement are. I use masking tape to mark out what I'm going to be doing. Like if I'm doing lace, it's really handy. I just mark out what I'm going to be moving over, especially if it's the same every couple of rows. No big deal. Yeah, I make noises. And just move it over. Wrap your yarn around your needle. Work 2 stitches. Do this all the way to the end, which are actually almost to the end. Yeah, I prefer doing it this way because for me, it's a little quicker. Now, once I get this made, I'm going to bring back my cast-on comb. And I will load it up with this rag hem. And then I probably won't take this rag hem off again. I have it, for the most part, I have a rag hem for each one of my cast-on combs. Because if you don't want to make one for each cast-on comb, I'll show you how to utilize this. And if you've got one of these and you don't want to, like I said, don't want to make a cast-on comb, which I'm lazy, so that's why I have the cast-on comb. Yeah, I know that's an oxymoron, lazy, but you're doing all this work. But I don't have the patience to reload every stitch if I want to use this. So I attach these holes to my cast-on comb, and then I'm ready to go whenever I want to make something. And if I'm making something that's got, I need 61 needles in it, I don't have to count them. They're right there for me. almost done. Can you see? You can still see me. I do apologize for sometimes getting my shoulder in the way. I do not have a camera person. This is just me. So if it gets a little blurry at times, it's because the camera hasn't caught up with me yet. This is looking okay. Now I'm on my last one. I attach my scissors to my blonde on a piece of string and just cut it. Push all my needles back out of the way. Get my yarn out of the way without dumping everything else. Get my weights off. Now, if you were doing a hat, you would do this for about 36 rows. Seam it together that way, and you have a hat. Can you see it? Okay, but if you want to use this, you can use it this way or this way. It's no, never mind. To use it without the cast-on comb, you have to take each one of these hooks, each one of these holes, and hook it onto a needle. Personally, I don't have that much patience. If I'm going to do that, I only want to do it once. So, excuse me, I bring up my cast-on comb that I have made. Let's get this where you can see me. Okay. And remember what you did to the needles? Well, that's what you're going to do to this. You're just going to put it on there however you see fit. I find it's easier to just loop it. Trial and error here. Just push it onto it and make sure it hooks. This is about the easiest. There is no right side or wrong side with a cast on for rag hem. And you just slide each one of these. Yeah, I know, I forgot to glue it. But that's okay, I will glue it. Okay, and you just, and that's all you do to the end. And you just leave it like that. Just each hole each hole gets a pin. This way you got the rag hem to hold the weight. This part is time consuming, but it saves time later on. Try not to hit your pins so you bend them out of shape. Let's get the camera where I'm sitting. There. And I'm just pushing them down. Now when I go to get the last one, it might be a little snug. Just push each one down. You'll still load it the same, use it the same way. Do your cast on row, because I do mostly closed cast on. If I wanted to do an open cast on, I would work some waste yarn. then knit a few rows, then knit a ravel cord row, and then start my work. And that would give me an open cast on. Then when I'm done, I just undo the ravel cord row, and that effectively separates my work from my waste yarn. And then what I do at that point, yeah, I gotta reglue that guy. Okay. Alright, now, what I did wrong, which, since I'm taking it off the glue anyway, I'm not overly worried about it. When I started over here, I started at the first hole. What I should have done, let me show you. Take this edge here and put the edge onto it. Okay? But I'll fix that. And that's a... Actually, I mean, you could use it like that. It won't make that big of a difference. And that's it. Okay, now I'm going to go glue it. And if you ever wanted to take it off, you just do this. Yeah, I got one that keeps... See, it just meets each other. That's that one of those ones I got to glue. But I'm just going to glue the whole thing again so that it'll make sure I grab it right. And what I'll do to glue it, make sure they're all facing the right direction. Take out my glue, which I use tacky glue. And just run a new bead. Now, if you wanted to, you could paint this. Oops, sorry. Just run a nice bead along it. And once it dry, if you've got any needles that are a little bit bent or a little out of whack, you just take the time. Sorry about that. Just take the time and reposition them with your pliers. Okay, you want a nice solid bead of glue. Okay. And then just let it dry for 24 hours and you'll be able to use it. Thank you for watching and have a good day.